It is Hometown Magazine here on this July 3rd, 2013. Nick Ruffner with you here on News Talk AM 1160 WCCS. Very proud to be joined by Congressman Bill Shuster on the phone. Congressman Shuster, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Nick. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, and we hope to make this a monthly appearance for you, talk about different things that you're working on, and that's a very important thing because I know you're head of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee in the House, a very important committee with a lot of importance to our region.
Well, it's a great committee to be chairman of. I'm really proud that the members of my conference elected me to be chairman, and we're working very hard, not only in the district, across the state, but across the nation. There's as chairman of the committee, I have responsibilities, as I said, to my district, to the state, and to the nation in that role.
How important is effective transportation to not only your district, but the entire nation? I know we had a big talk here in the state leading up to the budget being signed about increased funding for transportation. So we know if it's important in the state, but then the federal side as well. Well,
absolutely. It's really the backbone of the economy. If it were a human body, probably even more accurately, it's the veins that carry the blood of commerce. You can't have commerce in this country unless you have a robust, strong physical platform to move not only our goods but our people around this country. And we're a nation growing 300 million people in the next about 20, 25 years. We'll be at 400 million people, and we need to continue to make sure that our transportation system is the first-class system in the world, because our competitors around the world, the Chinese and others, are making huge investments to make sure they're able to move their goods into the world economy in an efficient manner. And if we're not able to do that, that means jobs. And infrastructure in the district is like infrastructure everywhere. And we have bridges that need to be repaired or replaced. So there's a lot of challenges. We were successful in getting the funding to be able to expand Route 219 from the Turnpike in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, and eventually end up with a connection to 68 in Maryland, which, as people in Indiana County know how important the system is. We were working hard to be working with Don White and Dave Reed up there to figure out how to expand the use of 422. You folks know that by building 119, connecting the 22 to Pittsburgh, is going to have a positive impact on your economy. And that is a core function of government. Not all federal, but federal, state, and local working together. And that's what our founding fathers had in mind when they crafted our Constitution, that connecting the nation physically by the transportation system was going to turn us into a great nation, which it has. From the Transcontinental Railroad to the Panama Canal to the interstate highway system, they've all had a tremendous positive impact on the growth of the economy in America and creating jobs for the people.
You know, I covered Route 219 for quite a few years when I was a TV reporter in the Johnstown area, and then you start thinking about Continental 1, which is that super highway that would stretch from Miami all the way into Toronto and Canada. Does that kind of leave the door open for that down the road, the extension of 219?
Well, that's a huge project you're talking about, but you got to take this thing in bits and pieces. We have to be fiscally responsible. We got to do this without deficit spending. But that's the kind of thing you want to do in the long run is connect the nation and making sure we can get our goods to the world markets.
All right, and when we talk about transportation, I mentioned that the House and Senate in Pennsylvania were talking about, I guess it ended up being a $2.5 billion bill, extra transportation funding. Is that something that you follow closely from Washington?
Yes, we certainly watch it, because all over the country, governors realize their systems are in their transportation systems, highways and bridges are in critical disrepair. They need to be replaced, because if we don't, and I understand that Secretary Shouk has said that they're going to have to start limiting travel on bridges because the bridges need to be repaired. So it's something we have to figure out a way to do it. We have to be fiscally responsible. We can't do this with deficit spending, and I think the governor is trying to put together a program. But yes, we watch it happening all over the country.
All right, and one other thing I wanted to talk to you about is the Farm Bill, which did not pass the House. How did you view the Farm Bill? I know that there was some concern, especially in the Midwest, about subsidies. Not so much here because our area doesn't rely on farm subsidies as much. But how did you view the Farm Bill that came before the House? I believe it was a couple weeks ago.
Well, I've always been a supporter of the agriculture community. It is Pennsylvania's number one industry. and I have one of the most agricultural intensive districts in the United States, especially when you get down east in my district, Franklin County. So I've always been a strong supporter of the farming community. I thought we had an opportunity. I voted against it this time, but we're going to have an opportunity to bring another bill up, which I was hoping for, and then we're going to separate the bills. There's going to be a farm bill, which we're going to do some positive reforms to, and then we're going to also reform the food stamp program, which has grown by 70% under President Obama. It's going to take up between $80 and $90 billion a year over the next 10 years to over $80 billion or $800 billion. I think there needs to be significant reform, and so I believe what we're going to do is split them, have a farm bill, have a food stamp bill, and make sure we have some really positive reforms to the farm bill, but also significant reforms and reductions to the food stamp program.
All right. So right now, though, you're on recess. So what are you doing right now? What are you doing this week?
Well, contrary to what a lot of the national media says, they think we're on vacation. This is nothing. This is not a vacation for me. This is the time when I get back into the district and I go to. I'll be in. I have about 12. I have 12 counties. I'll make visits to six of the counties. I have some presence in 6 of the counties over this recess, and I'm doing a lot of what I call town halls. I go into companies, tour their companies, talk to the owners and the managers about the business and their thoughts and needs, and then I meet with 150 workers the other day on a couple of occasions and talk to them and hear what they have to say, what their concerns are, to make sure that I'm in touch with the people of the 9th Congressional District, because in a representative democracy, it's extremely important that those that you elect get back home and talk to the people on the ground. So hopefully by the end of this week, I'll have been in front of maybe 200 to 300 people and heard their concerns, as well as visiting several businesses to understand their concerns and their needs.
So when Congress goes back into session, do you have any ideas on what might be the big items on the plate?
Well, sure. The Farm Bill is going to be a big item. Again, we'll take that up, I believe, in July. We're also going to be looking at immigration. The immigration bill that the Senate passed it's just ridiculous. To pass a 1,200-page immigration bill, nobody knows what's inside of it. It's much like Obamacare. We don't know what's in it. But the House is going to take a more reasonable approach, take it bits and pieces at a time. I think there'll probably be a couple of bills, 2 to 3 on the House floor, dealing with strengthening our border, dealing with strengthening the laws, and dealing with reforming the immigration system. We're going to take it in bite-sized pieces, not through this 1,200-page bill the Senate has, which I said is very concerned. It gives the administration, once again, a lot of power. And I, as a conservative Republican, believe the legislature has to take back its power. We've given way too much power to the executive branch over the last 40 or 50 years, and that's why they do things like President Obama just announced the other day. He's going to do some climate change bills or rulemaking and regulations, and he won't even have to come to Congress. The EPA has become far too powerful. So as a conservative Republican, I believe Congress has to take back its constitutional authority, and that's something I'm working on right now.
State Senate talking today, Congressman Shuster, about a Medicare expansion, deciding what to do on that. Every state has to make that decision. And then word just came out about the Federal Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, that the employer mandate is going to go away until 2015.
I feel good about that only because small businesses are not going to have to suffer under that for another year. But let me be clear, that was a purely political move by the president. He knows how bad this thing is going to be for businesses that employ over 50 employees. And that's why he did it, because in the next midterm elections, they view, as we view, if that goes into effect, there'll be huge defeats for the Democrats in the legislature, in the House, and in the Senate. So I believe it's purely political on the president's part to put that off till after the midterm elections. And people should see it for what it is.
Well, I'll close out with sort of a fluffy question for you. Since the 4th of July is tomorrow, Independence Day, since you've been elected, has that taken on special meaning for you?
Well, absolutely. But, really before that, as someone I was a history major in college and studied history, the 4th of July is really the quintessential American holiday. It's the day that we celebrate our independence and our freedom. It's the day that we should be honoring our men and women in the military and remembering the sacrifices over 230 years they've put forth for us to make sure we keep our freedoms. And so it is a special day this year, too, because we're also celebrating and honoring a 150-year anniversary one of our darkest times in history, and that's the Battle of Gettysburg, the Civil War. But it allowed us, although it was a terrible chapter in our history, America is still united today, and we are the greatest nation, not only in the world today, but I believe the greatest nation in the history of the world. And much of that is due to the valor of the men and women of our military who served for over 230 years, defending our freedoms and making sure that we remain a free nation.
Congressman Shuster, I appreciate you joining us today. You have a very great Independence Day, and we'll talk to you next time here on Hometown Magazine.
Thank you, Nick. You too have a great 4th of July.
Thank you. 9:48 is your time here on your hometown radio station, News Talk AM 1160 WCCS. Congressman Bill Shuster, first time he's joined us on Hometown Magazine. It won't be the last. We're hoping to make that a monthly segment right here on the Voice of Indiana County.